Welcome to the Jet Set Dynasty Podcast.
What makes a good fantasy football league? This is a very common question without an obvious answer. Most of us fantasy football enthusiasts take on more leagues than we can possibly handle. Then we are stuck managing 15 teams across a variety of different formats without truly enjoying the individuality of each one. We play in daily, yearly, dynasty, PPR, IDP, Superflex, even best ball leagues. But most of us don't take the time to step back and smell the fantasy football roses. I know there are a lot of players who don't even know their competition outside of a screen name, and I think that's a real shame. I'm lucky enough to be able to avoid doing standard ESPN or NFL.com leagues because I have the benefit of playing in leagues with my lifelong friends. I try to limit myself to 8 leagues at the most in any given fantasy football season, because I feel that any team I only pay half attention to is a disservice to both myself and to the other players in the league who are trying to have fun. And so I pose this question to you again. What makes a good fantasy football league? If you've read Matthew Berry's book, Fantasy Life, then you know he feels that tradition is what makes leagues great. To an extent, I agree with that. In my main redraft league, we have a football for the champion to sign every year, and we have a toilet seat for the last place owner to sign, in addition to having to wear a Lima Swede jersey at the draft. Of course, tradition isn't worth anything if you don't have active league members. A league where everybody is consistently making roster changes, setting lineups, and most importantly, talking smack, is the type of league I want to be in. Most often you get this in a league where everybody has some sort of physical connection to one another, such as a family or friends league. Believe me, there's nothing better than getting to rub your championship in all your friends' faces for an entire year. Ultimately, I think it's easier to define what makes a bad league than to figure out the formula for a good one. If you're playing in a league where everybody needs to be chased down for their league fees, you might be in a bad league. And I'll take it a step further and say that if you're the living piece of human fecal matter that is always delinquent with his or her payments, then you need to take a long look in the mirror and reevaluate your life. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody wants to chase you down for cash in a league that you want to be in. The commissioner is already a thankless job, and you're just adding gasoline to the fire by making them chase you down for your money. If you are one of these people, I will give you 2 options on how to become a better person overnight. 1. Get your act together and pay when the money is due. Or you can go with option 2, lobotomy and castration. If you have owners that do not set lineups every week, you might be in a bad league. Yes, you might get lucky enough to get a free W, but why in the world would you want that? It takes away everything that is beautiful about fantasy football. A win by default is not a win at all. It doesn't prove you're better than anybody or anything. It means that somebody cares so little about your league that they can't take 5 God-forsaken minutes out of their day to click some buttons for a lineup. If you have one of these people in your league, then you need to sit them down and ask them if they really want to be a part of this great sport. As hard as it may be, it might be time to replace them for the general welfare of your league. Complicated scoring systems can be fun, but often for me, it ruins the league. I once played in a league where everybody had a single IDP spot. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not enjoy it. I didn't agree to be in this league with a single IDP spot. I joined it because somebody asked me to, and then I found out it had one. But I hate IDP. And there was no open channel of communication to present my disinterest in this format. So I was stuck playing throughout the season, putting random defensive players into this IDP spot, because I don't do IDP. I also don't enjoy leagues that throw out ridiculous bonuses.
A bonus of 5 points for any run or catch over 50 yards.
He already got 5 points for the big play. He doesn't need any more. If a player gets 20 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown, I think he should have the same amount of points as a player who had 1 carry for 80 yards and a touchdown. Because I simply can't draft or strategize for big plays. It's just too random. All that point bonuses do are add even more spontaneity to the already unpredictable landscape of fantasy football. If you play with a bunch of dickheads, you might be in the worst league ever, or you might be in the best league ever. If you get a league together of all the great fantasy football minds, I'm willing to bet you that more than 50% of them are probably assholes. But that's a great league to be in, because they're all assholes. Most fantasy football analysts are assholes. I am an asshole.
Who is he?
He's an asshole, sir.
I know that. What's his name?
That is his name, sir. Asshole. Major asshole.
And his cousin?
He's an asshole, too, sir. Gunner's mate, first class, Philip Asshole.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow?
Yo!
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
But they will all mesh with each other's personality, which is what you really need. If you are a loud, outspoken, no-holds-barred kind of guy, then you are probably a nuisance to the 11 quiet library card-carrying members of your league. The main takeaway from this whole rant is that if you're in a league that you absolutely love, do not let it go, no matter what. Hold on to it for dear life and enjoy every second of it. Every league has its problems, and these problems become even more prevalent in dynasty leagues. Just think about it. Year-round season equals year-round headaches. Plus, dynasty leagues are even more intricate with more rules. Taxi squads, rookie drafts, maybe even Devy players or salary caps. Plus, in dynasty, the dark angel of collusion and tanking is always just hovering ever so slightly above the league.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Recently, in one of my favorite dynasty leagues, we had this issue arise. There was a certain owner who made a series of trades and transactions that required action from the commissioner. It began with trades left and right for draft picks which were less than the face value of the player. For example, the first trade he made was Odell Beckham Jr. for 217 firsts and 118 first.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
That should have sounded the alarm. We all should have known instantly what was going on. Red flags should have been everywhere, but we attributed the bad trade to the owner's lack of dynasty experience. This was his first dynasty league ever, and it was only his second year playing dynasty. Being a dynasty football owner is a lot like being a doctor. You can read all the textbooks you want, but eventually you just have to learn to think and act like a doctor. Dynasty is the same exact way. No matter how many articles or rankings you look over, nothing will help you become better more than learning to think like a dynasty player. But back to the story. After trading Odell Beckham Jr., he continued to make more trades in which he gave good players for measly draft picks. Eventually, it hit a point where he had no relevant players left on his squad. Anybody with a sliver of value that he did have, he ended up cutting so he could pick up every single defense that was currently unrostered. And this is the offseason. There are several teams that didn't even have a defense rostered because there's much higher upside guys that you want on your offseason squad. This was a textbook example of tanking. What is tanking? I found this definition on footballguys.com, and truth be told, it's perfect. Tanking is taking actions an owner otherwise would not have taken if draft order was not a consideration. So the commissioner convened a meeting of his most trusted owners, myself included, so we could decide what we should do. There was no doubt in the world that the guy was tanking his team in order to get high draft picks. But we made a very stupid mistake when we began this league. A mistake you should never make, especially in dynasty football. We didn't have a league constitution. Such a simple and easy task that we completely overlooked. And now we needed it. Because tanking is typically cause for expulsion for most dynasty leagues. I'm in the Dynasty Nerd Staff League. And if you tank your team by selling off relevant players or setting inferior lineups, you are expelled from the league without refund. Nobody wants to get free W's. I know this is fantasy football, but we all live for the competition. I want to prove I'm better than you. I don't want a free win because you want good rookies next year. We dropped the ball. So action was needed. In the end, we decided that his moves needed to be reverted. The owner who received OBJ for pennies was of course less than pleased, but it had to be done. We gave the owner a choice to continue managing his team, but ultimately he felt what we were doing was unfair to him and he decided to walk. Which I don't blame him for doing. He's a very cool guy. I enjoyed playing with him for that first year. But tanking just creates a bad environment that is not fun for the general collective. The way his team would have been, every single team in this Dynasty League would have gotten at least one win against his. One of his best receivers on his team was Cody Core. Do I need to say anything else? I don't want to face a team that has no chance of beating me. I don't want a team that is legitimately struggling to miss out on a great player because somebody else rigged the system. Fantasy football, and Dynasty especially, is at its best when you have a group of guys going head-to-head trying to create a team that they think will be the best at some point in the future. If you think you're going to create that with bulk 2017 picks, you are sorely mistaken. The average hit rate of first-round Dynasty picks is right around 50%. In order for your team to drastically improve, you would need a historic draft class like the 2014 draft class. So let's assume somebody did monopolize that draft, and one owner walked away with Brandon Cooks, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, Devonta Freeman, Carlos Hyde, Kelvin Benjamin, and Jordan Matthews. Now he's been rewarded with great players for doing nothing skillful whatsoever. And who he's really hurting are the owners that are legitimately struggling to survive. In the end, I like to think that Dynasty football tries its best to emulate the National Football League. And by tanking, you are ruining that whole methodology. So if you have not reached this conclusion on your own, you need a league constitution. And I don't think teams should be allowed to tank. The rookie draft is supposed to supplement the talent on your roster, not completely define it. That has been today's episode of Jet Set Dynasty Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyNut. Let me know if you agree, disagree, give me your points. Let me know what's up. You can also email the show, jetsetdynasty@superfantasybros.com.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. I'm surrounded by assholes.